That's the flag of Argentina behind me, in case anybody has any occultist ideas. So there is a video that I made titled "You Can't Use the Bible to Prove the Bible or the Existence of Jesus." And truth be told, I think only read the title and then called me a heretic, but then somebody else came on 8 months later, which is 45 minutes ago, and said it's a circular argument. Now, if you actually watch the video, which is about 7 minutes long, or 8 minutes and 51 seconds, if I'm correct, I talk about the different canons of the Bible, like the Eastern Orthodox canon, which has 3rd Maccabees, one extra book than the Roman Catholic Bible. I also have the Peshitta, but something tells me that many of my viewers do not speak Spanish, so that's not useful for them. But I usually use the this one, the Protestant version, because it's just this version is a great translation. But do I have to say it over again? The Gospel according to Mark, the Gospel according to Matthew, the Gospel according to John, the Gospel according to Luke. And you have these different factions of Christianity early on that are fighting and vying for power, not physically fighting, but you have things like the 7 authentic letters of Paul, and then you have things like James and Hebrews, which seem to conflict with each other. It's all the early stuff that was gathered together, and they were very unsure about adding the Apocalypse of John. By the way, I have a very cool t-shirt on. It's not the Virgin of Guadalupe or the Virgin of Fatima, but it's a cool shirt. But let me go through this again. And this is the anti-theists, or anti-Christians, or Julianists, or new atheists make this argument. Oh, it's a circular argument. The canon of Scripture was compiled over centuries. All the works, except for possibly Jude and 2 Peter, were written in the 1st century. Some of them were written very close to the time of Christ, right? And even the farthest away, people can remember intimately what happened on D-Day or what happened at Operation Market Garden, or Bastogne. And people can remember vividly what happened during the siege of Khe Sanh, or Vietnam, whatever. But walking around with a preacher for 1 to 3 years, and him being an apocalyptic preacher for 3 years, and him being brutally beaten and then crucified, there's no way that that they could have a memory of that, Not to mention that Matthew is a very Judaized gospel. Mark is almost an eyewitness, and Luke was professionally put together. And we have Q that's missing, and then we have John, which is non-synoptic, which doesn't follow the rest of them, and gives us and tells us that Christ was preaching for 3 years. And the New Testament, you have 7 authentic letters of Paul, possibly 9, but then you have the pastorals, which seem almost anti-Pauline. The book of Acts were written by a couple of people. You have 1st and 2nd Peter, which are written by 2 different people. I used to believe that the letters of John were written by 3 different people. Now I believe they're written by all the same person, and the same John that wrote the Epistle of John, or I'm sorry, the Gospel of John. And then you have things like Hebrews. Well, who wrote Hebrews? Nobody knows. And it's not even grouped in with Pauline epistles. And there's things like Jude, right? And I thought James was a forgery to begin with, but now I don't believe James was a forgery. All written within 15 to 50 years of the events happening. Unlike the Quran, which the Hadiths were whittled down from over 600,000 to 2,602 original, 300 years after the fact that Abu al-Qasim, the man who had the title Muhammad, died. The fundamentalists and the Julianists or the new atheists or the anti-theists have the exact same view of the Bible, that it's infallible and it floated down from heaven. Not that it's divinely inspired, because divine inspiration, I mean, Amazing Grace, that song was divinely inspired. Does not mean it's inerrant. And the Holy Bible was ever claimed to be inerrant when interpreted by the church, not by the lay people. But yeah, it's ludicrous. Yeah, and as I say in the video, I usually use extra biblical sources because there are plenty to prove the existence of Jesus and how the movement started. An apocalyptic preacher with a very radical message for his time, at least, died. The body disappeared. Followers believe he was resurrected, and they spread within a century from India to Ireland, and the major centers were Alexandria, Jerusalem, and Rome, and especially many cities in Greece and Anatolia. Antioch, sorry, not Jerusalem. Jerusalem kept getting destroyed. Antioch was the big center, as well as Damascus. But both the fundamentalist and the atheist on here believe that one person wrote all of the New Testament, which is just ludicrous. Or they believe in dictation, that divine inspiration means dictation, which is just silly. You know, then why was Matthew and Luke both using Mark as a template, and why did Luke and Matthew hate each other vehemently? So, yeah, that's something that, it's like, how stupid can you get? Not even Sahih Bukhari claims that the Quran was completely written by Muhammad, or Abu al-Qasim, who calls himself Muhammad, who is usually called Kuthum. So how is it circular logic again? I just want to know, how is it circular logic? This collection of books here, which 7 of the works have the same writer, but those are epistles, and some of the bios, which is where we get biography from. This is what the Gospels are called, the bios. We have 4 of them, 5 if you count Acts, were written by 5 different people. Or 4 if you think that Luke wrote Acts. I think he may have written part of Acts, but I don't think he wrote the whole thing. You know, it's like saying, well, you use that library to do all your research. That's circular argument. How? I mean, it's ludicrous. But they both have the same weird view of the Bible where it was sent down from heaven and it's perfect and it's, you know. Well, I guess this isn't, because this is a Roman Catholic Bible with the Maccabees in it, and Tobit and Judith. And this is the Eastern Orthodox Bible that has more books in it, so they wouldn't like that. But this is the NASB. They'd like this. They'd probably like the King James better. But, yeah, it wasn't heaven sent. And, not anachronistic like the Quran, where all the flora and fauna is wrong, meaning that it had to take place in Palestine. Couldn't take place in Mecca. Mecca didn't exist yet, nor does Mecca appear in the Quran. But the word Becca, which is a valley in Lebanon, where the flora and fauna do match, that exists and exists to this day. Joseph Smith in his Book of Mormon talk about cattle, sheep, horses, all things that were not part of pre-Columbian America. But this doesn't have any anachronisms in it, nor does it get any of the distances wrong or any of the foods they ate or their customs incorrectly. Doesn't mean it has to be divine, but what's wrong with using the New Testament to prove the existence of Jesus? A lot of these groups didn't like each other. The church that followed the Gospel of Matthew probably did not like Paul at all. Alright, peace to you. Circular argument. How? I want to know how, especially from, what was his name, Mr. Pills? Terrible name, but Mike Pills. It is a circular argument. I wrote, how so? Did you even watch the video? Alright, peace to you out there. May God save Serbia, Syria, and Ireland. Oh yeah, being an atheist, it's not edgy or cool. I meet many people who are atheists, and I say, well, I'm not. I believe in God. I believe in the saints. And I believe heaven, hell, and God are the same thing. And they go, oh my God, I am too. I'm around so many atheists. So there's a lot of, because atheists have been such bullies lately, there's a lot of stealth Christians out there that you'd never guess. Oh yeah, and I have iconography everywhere. From a weird Hispanic Arab guy with an Irish mother. Peace to you.